Number 6. The skeleton on the sunken plane. Those who choose to dive off the coast of Aqaba in Jordan might be left with a scary sight. After sinking to a depth of 52 feet, divers will be able to see the wreckage of a Hercules C-130 transport plane. If they swim a little closer and peer inside the cockpit, they'll notice a skeleton of a pilot still strapped in his seat. But why hasn't the wreck been recovered? And what happened to the pilot and his crew? The answer lies in the fact that the plane never really crash-landed into the ocean at all. Instead, the Hercules plane was sunk on purpose at the location to be a tourist attraction for divers. It's also supposed to support the local marine life by acting as an artificial reef. It's not just this plane that divers can find in Aqaba Bay. In fact, over the years, multiple other vehicles, including a Lockheed Martin L-1011 TriStar and even a military M42 Duster tank, have been sunk. The project is a joint collaboration between the Royal Jordanian Navy, the Aqaba Port Corporation, and the ASESA, the Aqaba Special Economic Zone Authority. As for the pilot skeleton, thankfully he's made of plastic and not the remains of an actual human being. Originally, he was dressed up in a full flight suit and a pilot's helmet, but now only his headgear remains thanks to the water damage. Although the skeleton may not seem as creepy now that we've explained his backstory, the same can't be said for the wreck of the Hercules. A storm hit Aqaba on March 17, 2020 that ripped apart the fuselage of the plane, tearing off its nose and burying its wings down in the seabed. Despite this, the Hercules still remains one of Aqaba's top-rated attractions. Number 5. The Dragon's Triangle. You may have heard of the Bermuda Triangle, but not many know about the deadly and terrifying Dragon's Triangle. The Dragon's Triangle is found in the suitably named Devil's Sea, known as Ma no Umi in its native language, Japanese. Located in the Pacific Ocean and spanning from Japan to the islands of Bonin in the Philippine Sea, this area is one of the 12 vile vortices found in the world. Vile vortices happen where the Earth's electromagnetic waves are much stronger than anywhere else. Similarly to the Bermuda Triangle, the Dragon's Triangle is responsible for the loss and disappearance of countless ships. Tales of disappearances go back centuries. During the 13th century, the legendary Mongol conqueror Kublai Khan, the grandson of the infamous Genghis Khan, tried invading Japan. But he had to call the attack off after losing 40,000 men and all of his ships thanks to the Dragon's Triangle. Although many thought this was simply a legend, the recovery of multiple Mongolian ships from the water centuries later confirmed this is accurate. More recently, in the 1940s and 1950s, countless fishing boats and at least 5 separate military vessels went missing within the vicinity of the Dragon's Triangle around Miyake Island and Iwo Jima. A research ship called Kaiu Maru No. 5 was sent out in 1952 to try and investigate the disappearances, but it also never returned. The wreckage was discovered later on, but the crew had disappeared. As a result of this, the Japanese government officially declared the area as being too dangerous for marine travel. To explain away these disappearances, the Chinese had a theory about the area, which is where it gets its original name. They believed that dragons once lived under the surface of the Devil's Sea, and they would plan attacks on vessels passing through so they could feed on the crews. But more possible theories have come forward during recent times, although the jury is still out on what the true explanation of this phenomenon really is. Some scientists like Ivan Sanderson think that hot and cold currents in the area lead to the increase in electromagnetic activity that causes ships to get lost. Others believe it could come down to undersea volcanoes that shift around pressures and islands in the area, a theory that could partly explain why the Chinese thought it was dragons at work. The final school of thought on the matter relies on the presence of large amounts of methane hydrates being discovered in the area. When methane hydrate explodes, it causes large amounts of bubbles to rocket to the surface, being enough to throw off the buoyancy of a ship and cause it to sink without a trace. But to this day, no one really knows what lies behind the mystery of this dangerous and terrifying region of the ocean. Do you have any theories? Number 4. The Griffin. The Griffin was a ship built by Frenchman René Robert Cavalier, Sieur de la Salle. to try and find a route from America's Great Lakes to China and Japan to facilitate trade. But 343 years ago, on its maiden voyage with a shipment of furs, the ship vanished without a trace. After the ship disappeared, rumors started to circulate about what could have happened to the Griffin. Some said that Native Americans boarded the ship, killing the crew and setting it on fire. Others think it was sunk by the Jesuits. But the general consensus was that the ship had been cursed in some way. It was said that a prophet from the Iroquois tribe, Metiomek, told La Salle that the ship was doomed to sink in deep waters. But La Salle himself didn't seem to believe in this theory. He instead just assumed that the crew had mutinied, abandoning the ship to take the valuable cargo of furs for themselves. After the ship went missing, many reported seeing it as a ghost ship on the waters of the Great Lakes during moonlit nights, with the men on board chanting mysteriously, leading many to experience fear when navigating the lakes. A breakthrough was made in 2018 when husband and wife team Stevie and Kathy Liebert managed to track down the wreckage of the Griffin in Lake Michigan's Poverty Bay, 17 years after they found what they think was its bowsprit in 2001. The wreckage, although protected by the state of Michigan, seems to reveal that the true cause of the Griffin's sinking was a 4-day storm. This explained why the bowsprit was found 3.8 miles away from the rest of the ship. Curiously, it's the only bowsprit that remains in the deeper section of the lake. So, was Metiomek's curse true after all? What would you do if you found yourself on a cursed ship? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Number 3. The Coryen Maelstrom. Whirlpools and maelstroms have been a terror to sailors for centuries. But there is one just off the coast of Scotland that isn't even temporary, but a permanent fixture on the seas. The Coryen Whirlpool is the third largest known in the world and can be accessed off the coast of Jute. Due to the region's unique geography, the Coryen Gulf finds itself wedged between two islands, with one having a high tide and the other a low one at the same time. As a result, this affects the sea in a way that causes the maelstrom to form. The whirlpools created at Coryen can be seen even on clear, windless days, but it's when the wind picks up in this area that it becomes even more dangerous. With unexpected gales, especially those that come in from the west, the waves around the Coryen whirlpools can reach up to 15 feet in height, making it a truly impressive but incredibly deadly sight to behold. The Coryen Maelstrom also has a legend attached to it that warns of the dangers of the whirlpools. It's said that a Scandinavian prince once fell in love with one of the island's beautiful princesses and asked for her hand in marriage. The king of the island agreed, but only if the prince, Brecken, could moor his ship for 3 days and 3 nights straight in Coryen to show his resolve. Brecken agreed to the outrageous terms and headed back home to prepare. He had 3 ropes of different strengths made, one made of hemp, one made of wool, and one made of hair donated by the maidens of Norway, with the belief that their purity would help keep the rope strong. The prince then headed into the middle of the Coryen whirlpool and moored his ship. On the first night, the hemp rope frayed and ultimately snapped, but the ship and its crew were unscathed. The same thing happened on the second night, when the woolen rope quickly broke down. On the third and final night, it was just the maiden's hair rope that was left. All seemed to be going well until a strong rush of wind broke the last rope. The ship and Brecken were then swallowed up by the whirlpool. Only 2 souls lived to tell the tale, one crewman and Brecken's dog, who managed to drag the prince's body to shore. When the man came back to Norway to let them know of the prince's fate, one of the women who donated her hair immediately broke down in tears, saying that it was her fault since she was not as pure as she had claimed. Number 2. The Salem Express. The Salem Express was a roll-on, roll-off ferry, first built back in 1964. It started off life as a French passenger ferry, but by 1991, the ship was in service out of the port of Safaga in Egypt. In December 1991, tragedy struck. The Salem Express was coming back from Jeddah in Saudi Arabia, and its passengers were mostly pilgrims heading home from the holy site of Mecca. As a result, the ship was packed with people way over capacity. In an effort to save a bit of time, the ship's captain decided to take an unauthorized shortcut through the Hindman Reefs, something that had the potential to lessen the journey's time by 2 hours. But a storm formed, bringing with it gale force winds that pushed the ship into a nearby reef, causing a large hole to open up in her side, which started rapidly flooding with water. The Salem Express sank entirely within less than 20 minutes, leaving many unable to get to or even deploy the lifeboats in time. 470 of those on board lost their lives, with only 180 survivors. Over 30 years since the tragic sinking of the Salem Express, the wreck is now a controversial diving site, one that many divers who visit it find very unsettling. Although all of the bodies of those who died have been recovered, there are still spooky remnants of those who lost their lives, including television sets, abandoned luggage, and even a few children's toys. What makes things even more creepy is the fact that despite the amount of time the Salem Express had been under the waves, there was hardly any coral growth on it, as if Mother Nature herself is aware of the tragedy that took place there. And at number 1, the Strid. The Strid, in the UK's Bolton, looks like a bubbling woodland stream, but the Strid actually has a 100% mortality rate. No one that's gone into its water has ever come out alive, and more often than not, their body is lost forever. So what makes the Strid so dangerous? It's part of the larger River Wharf, which runs through Yorkshire and is an average of 30 feet across. But when the water reaches the area called the Strid, the river bunches up until it's barely a few feet wide. But if it narrows in such a short distance, what happens to the rest of the water in the wide river? The answer is that it's actually still there, but instead the river has flipped on its side, flowing vertically through the channel in the narrow rocks on either side instead of taking its traditional horizontal course. This change in direction turns the Strid into a dangerous, powerful, and deep current capable of pulling people underwater and trapping them between rocks. Anyone unlucky enough to end up in it is ripped apart by the current and the rocks in seconds, which helps explains why bodies are very rarely recovered. The unassuming appearance of the Bolton Strid is what makes it seem even more terrifying. It can look incredibly easy just to walk beside it or even jump across from one side to the other, but the slipperiness of the moss-covered rocks and its tendency to flash flood can easily claim the lives of those unaware of the danger. The earliest known record of someone losing their life in the Bolton Strid dates back to the 12th century. The local landowner, Alistair Romilly's son William, was swept away by the waters in 1152 when he tried to jump across it. Devastated by the loss of her child, Alice chose to donate the land to the monks, hoping that they could pray for her son's soul, which would explain why Bolton Priory can be found just a short distance away from the Strid. The boy's tale was so famous in the area that it even sparked romantic poet William Wordsworth to immortalize it in one of his poems. The Strid even claims lives to this day. In 1932, a 63-year-old painter named Arthur Reginald Smith died while trying to paint this deadly stretch of water. But Arthur was far from foolish enough to make the same decision to hop over the river like its younger victim. Instead, it's thought that the watercolor painter was swept up and drowned as a result of a flash flood. Although it might seem a little far-fetched to think someone could get caught that quickly from the Strid flash flooding, it is all too possible. Barry and Lynn Collett were celebrating their honeymoon back in 1998 and took a walk along the river wharf. As they reached the Strid, the water rose over 5 feet in less than a minute, sweeping the couple to their deaths. The most recent life that was lost to the Bolton Strid was in 2010, but sadly they're likely to be the last to fall victim to these waters. Legend has it that a white horse will ride along the Strid whenever someone dies there. So if you're in that area and you hear hoofbeats, you best be careful.
9. Retired Greek Airways Boeing 727. In rural Hillsboro, Oregon, there's a Boeing 727 jet that once flew for the Greek airline Olympic Airways. The seemingly abandoned aircraft's exterior is noticeably old and worn, as if it was left at the mercy of nature and forgotten about. But it's actually the home of a retired engineer named Bruce Campbell, who paid $100,000 for the plane in 1999 after it was retired from commercial service. He paid another $120,000 to have it flown to the US from Athens. Campbell repurposed the 727 into his permanent home. He never divided the interior into separate rooms, but he removed some of the seats to make space for his furniture and belongings. The engine is also gone, but the aircraft sits along a major fault line, so he left the landing gear in place to protect it in the event of an earthquake. Campbell told Bottom Line blogger Bill Briggs that airplanes function as flying homes, but that they can serve the same purpose just fine on the ground. They're equipped with everything a person needs as far as modern conveniences like lighting, plumbing, and climate control go. He saw no reason to create separate rooms or make any other major changes to the interior. In fact, Campbell believes that retired aircraft could be repurposed as affordable housing, despite the pretty penny he paid to set up his 727 as a home. He spends half the year living in the aircraft in Oregon and the other half in Japan, where tsunamis, earthquakes, and other natural disasters have made thousands of people homeless on a moment's notice at various points throughout history. Speaking to Oregon Live, the eccentric engineer pointed out that 3 commercial aircraft are retired daily on average, and he wondered out loud why they end up being scrapped or abandoned when they could easily function as someone's home. 8. NSA Spy Hub in the heart of Manhattan. At 33 Thomas Street in Lower Manhattan's Tribeca neighborhood, there's a brutalist skyscraper with no windows and no clear purpose. Standing at 550 feet, 167.6 meters tall, this drab concrete structure is commonly known as the AT&T Long Lines Building. It was built in the early 1970s for the purpose of housing the world's largest center for processing long-distance phone calls. According to records, the building is still owned by AT&T, but a report by The Intercept based on documents obtained by the Freedom of Information Act and other sources of information alleges that the building functions as a national security agency spy hub called Titan Point. In fact, according to the article, the Long Lines Building is one of the most important NSA spy centers on U.S. soil. And while the outside of the structure seems silent and mysterious, the interior is allegedly bustling with intelligence activity, including agents tapping phone calls, faxes, internet data, and other activity. The building's address isn't listed in the documents obtained by The Intercept, but other evidence, including architectural plans, public records, and interviews with former AT&T employees, suggests that the skyscraper was or is used for clandestine spying purposes. Some of the information came from records leaked by whistleblower Edward Snowden. The materials strongly indicate that the NSA has a highly secure facility within the building, where agents have targeted the United Nations, the World Bank, the International Monetary Fund, and communications in at least 38 countries. The NSA declined to comment on the story, which means that the agency has neither confirmed nor denied its use of 33 Thomas Street for its rumored surveillance activities. 7. Cardiff Cold War Bunker. In the affluent Cardiff suburb of Llandaff, there's an inconspicuous, single-story, windowless, vine-covered brick building tucked away in the yard of a Victorian mansion. But one glance at the interior reveals that the building was meant for something other than everyday use. Built in 1956 amid escalating Cold War tensions with the Eastern Bloc, the unassuming 2,000 square foot, 186 meters squared structure was an emergency bunker that would function as a local nerve center in the event of a nuclear war. Its purpose was to enable the government to continue operating even in the midst of a catastrophe. To accommodate its occupants, it contained a kitchen, ventilation system, generator, control center, message rooms, officers' rooms, and escape hatches. Britain's Civil Defense Control Center ran the site for 12 years before it was disbanded in 1968, at which point it became a storage facility for emergency supplies. Volunteers maintained the building until the 1990s, when it was left behind for good. Like all other nuclear bunkers throughout the country and world, it was never used for its original intended purpose. Today, the long-abandoned shelter's interior is moldy, damp, and filled with garbage and rusting furniture. It's the only remaining Cold War site in Llandaff. In 2022, it was designated as a Grade 2 listed property, which means that it's protected under law due to its historical value, despite its state of disrepair. Have you ever been inside a bunker? Tell us about it in the comments below, and hit that subscribe button while you're at it. 6. The Padilon Real. The Stazione Centrale is the main railway station in Milan, Italy. More than 300,000 people pass through it daily, with most paying no mind to a series of closed doors that they walk right past. Behind those doors is a lavish waiting room called the Padilon Real, or the Royal Pavilion. It was added onto the station in 1926 at the urging of Italy's Minister of Communications, Costanzo Ciano. He thought it would be a good idea to create an elegant waiting space for the country's royal family, the Savoyas, who traveled by train to their countryside palace. Italy's monarchy ended immediately following World War II, but the Padilon Real still exists. It consists of 2 floors, the first of which is situated at ground level. It's filled with empty rooms that were once covered in fascist symbols, but the imagery was removed following the end of the war. The upper floor features a series of different marble interiors, as well as royal emblems, high-end furniture, and a balcony overlooking the public square. There are swastikas engraved into the wood flooring as an embellishment meant to impress Hitler if he ever dropped by, although he never visited the station. And there's also a small bathroom, where a large mirror conceals a ladder leading to an emergency escape route. The Padilon Real is hardly ever open to the public, so most people have never seen it firsthand. 5. Train Station Ballroom. When the Flinders Street train station in Melbourne, Australia was built in 1854, the city was a much different place. It was far less populated and contained none of the many skyscrapers that it's home to today. In fact, the station was the first structure of its kind in the country. The transport hub was originally very basic. It consisted of a 100-foot, 30 meters platform, which is where passengers would wait to board the single existing train line to Port Melbourne, known as Sandridge at the time. At the time, Melbourne was expanding rapidly due to its recent discovery of gold in the region. The Flinders Street station gradually expanded as people flocked to Victoria in throngs, hoping to strike an overnight fortune. During this so-called Marvelous Melbourne period, the city became extremely wealthy. In 1883, shortly before the end of the gold rush era, public officials called for a more extravagant version of the station to be built. It took some time, but the new Flinders Street station finally opened in 1910. The revamped property included an elegant ballroom above the main station that was built as a form of entertainment for railway workers. It also had a gymnasium, a lecture and concert hall, and a full-time caretaker who lived on site. Nearly 170 years after it was first built, the station is still there. It also still contains some of its original fixtures, including the ballroom, which was off-limits to most people for decades. In fact, it wasn't until 2020 that members of the public were allowed into the ballroom. According to The Guardian, many people didn't even believe the ballroom was real until then, including street artist Tyrone Wright, better known by his nickname Roan. Once he found out that the ballroom actually exists, he expressed an interest in putting the defunct space to use. In 2022, he became the proud creator of a new exhibition called Time, which has transformed the ballroom into what looks like an old cobweb-covered library and mailroom. The display ran until April 2023, and the ballroom has since become home to a new exhibition called Shadow Spirit. 4. The Haiku Stairs. Nestled among the Ko'aulo mountain range on the Hawaiian island of Oahu, there's a steep outdoor staircase called the Stairway to Heaven. Also known as the Haiku Stairs, the structure consists of 3,922 steps that once led to a top-secret U.S. Navy facility called the Haiku Radio Station, which was used for transmitting radio signals to Navy ships throughout the Pacific. After the naval base was decommissioned during the 1950s, it functioned as a base for Omega, the first-ever global-range radio navigation system. Around that time, the wooden steps that originally made up the Haiku Stairs were replaced with the metal steps and ramps that remain today. The staircase was once open to the public, but it attracted too many curious visitors for the government's comfort level, and in 1987, both the Haiku Stairs and the station were closed. In 2003, the city of Honolulu paid $875,000 to repair the stairs, with plans to reopen them to the public. But that never happened, and in 2018, the city made it clear that it never will, due to safety concerns. Trespassing has been a constant problem. Officials estimate that thousands of people have carelessly walked right past the no trespassing signs and ignored warnings that they could face a $1,000 fine for going any further. The hike offers stunning views of the landscape and nearby Kaneohe Bay, and it's proven nearly impossible to keep people away. Sadly, the Haiku Stairs will not exist for much longer. Realizing that there's only one way to get the trespassing to stop, the fed-up Honolulu City Council voted to remove the staircase, and the mayor has green-lighted these plans. 3. Britain's smallest police station. At the southeast corner of Trafalgar Square in London, there's a tiny police station that was built into the bottom of a large, hollowed-out light fixture. It's so small and well hidden, many people walk right past it without even noticing. Built in 1926, it's Britain's smallest police station. It was designed to accommodate just one officer and up to 2 prisoners at a time. And its original purpose was to enable the Metropolitan Police to keep an eye out for unruly demonstrators. The station is equipped with a set of narrow windows, offering the cop inside a direct view across the main square. It was also outfitted with a direct phone line to Scotland Yard in case the officer on duty needed to call for reinforcements. Anytime the phone was picked up, the lightning on the outside of the station would start to flash as a way to alert any nearby officers that their help was needed. Today, the space no longer functions as a police station, but as a much less exciting broom closet for city workers. 2. The Eiffel Tower apartment. Shortly after the Eiffel Tower was completed in 1889, word leaked that its designer, civil engineer Gustave Eiffel, had a private apartment built for himself near the top of the structure. It's a small but cozy space, and it was originally decorated in a simple style that Eiffel favored. Situated nearly 1,000 feet, 305 meters in the air, the apartment was equipped with wooden cabinets, several desks, a kitchen, a bathroom with a separate toilet cubicle, and even a grand piano. It was surrounded by an open-air balcony. Eiffel wanted it to be appealing to scientists, so he filled an adjacent space with scientific equipment. Parisian socialites were green with envy when they heard about Eiffel's apartment. He reportedly received numerous offers from elites hoping to rent it from him, but he declined them all. After all, he had the cozy abode put there for his own use as a reflection space and for entertaining prestigious guests like Thomas Edison. The apartment didn't even have a bedroom because it wasn't meant to be lived in. Today, it's open to the public for tours, offering a long-awaited glimpse into the high-demand space that the Eiffel Tower's designer awarded himself for his hard work. 1. Reach New York. Hidden in plain sight along the uptown and downtown platforms of the N and R subway lines inside New York City's 34th Street Herald Square station, there's a pair of inconspicuous green boxes hanging in plain view. Nearby, there's a plaque explaining that it's an interactive urban musical instrument. Using it is as easy as waving one's hand in front of the 8 eyes on the box, which play a variety of sounds and sound images, including the marimba, the flute, and even rainforest noises. The sounds are updated every year. In 2015, for example, the sounds consisted of 6 different amphibian species, including the eastern cricket frog, the American toad, the Great Plains toad, and the Canadian toad. In 2020, the sounds were updated to include various bird calls. Known as Reach New York, the display was installed back in 1995 by artist Christopher Janney, who maintains the display to this day. It often goes unnoticed by commuters, despite having been there for nearly 30 years. So, if you happen to visit or live in the Big Apple and want to impress bystanders, go ahead and give it a try. You might even get strap hangers on the other side of the tracks to play along.
At number 10, the S5 Submarine Accident from 1920. The USS S5 SS-110 a government-type S-class submarine of the United States Navy, holds a special place in naval history due to a remarkable sequence of events that led to its sinking while under tow during full power trials in 1920. Constructed at the Portsmouth Navy Yard in Kittery, Maine, her keel was laid down on December 4, 1917. She was then launched on November 10, 1919, and commissioned on March 6, 1920. But on September 1, 1920, during a submerged test run in the Atlantic Ocean off the Delaware Capes, disaster struck. Water flooded into the submarine through the main air induction system, overwhelming the control room, engine room, torpedo room, and motor room. This incident, triggered by a series of accidents, left the submarine in a dire situation, resting on the ocean floor. The crew's resourcefulness and quick thinking became their salvation. They used the submarine's buoyancy to tilt it on its nose, allowing the stern to rise above the water's surface. Miraculously, the crew managed to contact a vessel on the surface that stood by as they cut their way to freedom through the stern of the submarine. Everyone on board the submarine was rescued. However, subsequent efforts to salvage the submarine proved unsuccessful. Despite attempts by the U.S. Navy to raise the S5 from the ocean depths, it ultimately sank again, this time for good, during a tow operation September 3, 1920. At number 9, the HMS Afray Submarine Tragedy from 1951. HMS Afray, an Amphion-class British submarine, emerged from the twilight of the Second World War as one of the 16 submarines in her class designed for the Pacific theater against Japan. As the Royal Navy submarine was lost at sea, her story echoed through history, marked by the tragedy on April 16, 1951, an incident that claimed the lives of 75 individuals. The day's events unfolded as HMS Afray embarked on a simulated war exercise called Exercise Spring Train. Operating with a crew of 50, which was previously reduced from a crew of 61, the submarine was accompanied by 1 sergeant, 1 corporal, and 2 Marines from the Special Boat Service. Also added to the roster were a commander, engineer, a naval instructor, 7 engineering branch lieutenants, and 13 sub-lieutenants undergoing vital submarine officer training, bringing the total complement to 75. The submarine's captain had been given unusual orders for the exercise. Tasked with dropping off the Special Boat Service team along the southwest coast of England, the Afray was to enable their landing and facilitate their return under the cover of darkness. The exercise was to continue until her scheduled return on April 23 for essential repairs, including correcting a leak in a battery tank. On that fateful day, the Afray departed her home base, exchanging normal communications at around 9 p.m., indicating that she was preparing to dive at 21:15 BST, roughly 30 miles from the Isle of Wight. The expected surfacing signal was due by 9 a.m. the next day, but it was never received. The subsequent search and rescue operation was comprised of 26 ships, submarines, and aircraft, but the relentless search ultimately ended in despair. The submarine's final resting place was discovered 2 months later, 7.5 miles northwest of Alderney. Number 8, HMS Thetus, submarine disaster of 1939. Commissioned to strengthen the Royal Navy's capabilities during a period of heightened international tensions, Thetus met her tragic end during the sea trials in Liverpool Bay, England, on June 1, 1939. Constructed by Camel Laird in Birkenhead, England, and launched on June 29, 1938, Thetis embarked on her final diving trials under the command of Lieutenant Commander Guy Bolus. However, tragedy struck when a confusing layout of bow caps led to the accidental opening of the inner door of tube number 5. The inrush of water caused the Thetis to sink to the seabed, coming to rest 150 feet below the surface. Amid the chaos, 4 individuals managed to utilize the submarine's one-man escape chamber, but a 5th panicked and inadvertently jammed it. and unfortunately, the accident resulted in the loss of 99 lives. The aftermath of the Thetis disaster triggered profound changes in submarine design and safety measures. The incident prompted the redesign of torpedo tubes on British and Australian subs, the introduction of the Thetis clip, a latch on the inner torpedo tube door aimed to prevent such accidents by allowing incremental openings to verify tube status before fully exposing them to the sea. The catastrophe spurred legal action and brought attention to issues of negligence. The Admiralty's decision to withhold certain information fueled controversy, leading to subsequent scrutiny and legal changes. The memory of the Thetis disaster persists through memorials and exhibits, standing as a solemn reminder of the price paid for naval advancements. At number 7, K-129 Submarine Tragedy from 1968. The enigmatic sinking of the Soviet submarine K-129 in 1968 stands as a cryptic chapter in Cold War history. This Gulf II class submarine of the Soviet Navy, having completed 2 70-day ballistic missile combat patrols in 1967, embarked on her third patrol in February 1968. Under the command of Captain First Rank Vladimir Kobzar and with Captain Second Rank Alexander Zhuravin as the senior assistant, K-129 sailed on her final mission with a total of 83 souls on board. But despite conducting a successful test dive and reporting her status by radio, K-129's communication abruptly ceased. Soviet naval authorities launched search and rescue efforts, but by March she was declared missing. U.S. intelligence picked up anomalous acoustic signals, though, leading to a triangulation of a potential event location from the Soviets' search area. The submarine's wreckage was ultimately located by the USS Halibut, northwest of Oahu at a depth of approximately 16,076 feet in August of 1968. This discovery marked the beginning of a covert operation known as Project Azorian. With President Richard Nixon's authorization, the CIA orchestrated the salvage operation using the Hughes Glomar Explorer, a ship designed under the cover story of mining manganese nodules. Speculations of the cause of the disaster range from mechanical failures to crew mishandling, which eventually led to flooding. And while some suggested a hydrogen explosion within the batteries during charging, other theories included speculation of a collision with a U.S. sub and a missile explosion triggered by a leaking missile door seal. But these claims were vehemently denied by the U.S. Navy. Project Azorian aimed to recover valuable intelligence and potentially nuclear weaponry from the sunken submarine. The operation managed to raise a portion of the wreck, but it was marred by a critical failure that resulted in part of the wreckage slipping back to the ocean floor. The extent of what was salvaged and the secrets it revealed remain classified, yet the incident underscores the lengths nations were willing to go to gain a strategic advantage during the Cold War. Number 6, the INS Cinderakshack submarine disaster from 2013. The devastating sinking of the Indian Navy's INS Cinderakshack on August 14, 2013, remains a tragic episode in modern maritime history. The Russian-built Kilo-class submarine was docked at the Mumbai naval base when a massive explosion rocked its hull, resulting in a catastrophic fire that engulfed the vessel. The disaster claimed the lives of 18 crew members and dealt a significant blow to India's naval capabilities. While the exact cause of the explosion remains disputed, initial investigations pointed toward a possible torpedo detonation within the submarine. The incident occurred during a routine armament loading, and speculation centered on mishandling of torpedoes or a malfunction in the submarine systems. The explosion tore through the submarine's compartments, causing it to rapidly sink. The tragedy emphasized the inherent risks in naval operations and the challenges of maintaining aging submarines. The loss of the INS Cinderakshack underscored the need for stringent safety protocols and maintenance procedures to ensure the well-being of crew members. The incident also highlighted the complex nature of submarine operations and the vital role these vessels play in a nation's defense strategy. INS Cinderakshack's sinking prompted introspection within the Indian Navy and spurred efforts to enhance safety measures and modernize the fleet. Would you ever risk your life by diving into the ocean depths in a submarine? Let us know in the comments down below. And while you're at it, subscribe to the channel. Now, on to number 5. The loss of the USS Squalas in 1939. The sinking of the USS Squalas on May 23, 1939, stands as another tragic chapter in submarine history, followed by one of the most remarkable rescue operations ever executed. The incident occurred during a test dive off the coast of New Hampshire, where the submarine with a crew of 59 sailors was participating in routine trials. As the submarine descended, water began to flood the aft compartments due to a mechanical failure in the main induction valve, causing the Squalas to plummet to the ocean floor at a depth of about 240 feet. The crew struggled to escape the sinking vessel, but in a desperate race against time, they managed to send a distress signal before the situation became dire. Responding to the distress call, the USS Scorpion and USS Falcon rushed to the scene, along with civilian rescue teams. The rescue operation quickly became a harrowing test of innovation and courage. A diving bell designed by the Navy's Experimental Diving Unit was successfully attached to the Squalas, allowing the crew to be brought to the surface one by one. Then, over the course of 3 days, 33 crew members were rescued from the dark depths of the submarine, with the final survivor being brought up on May 27th. Tragically, 26 crew members lost their lives in the disaster, highlighting the inherent dangers of submarine operations. However, the Squalas incident spurred advancements in submarine rescue technology and procedures. Lessons learned from the rescue operation led to improvements in submarine design, escape mechanisms, and emergency protocols. Number 4. The disappearance of the ARA San Juan in 2017. The disappearance of the Argentine Navy submarine ARA San Juan in 2017 was a tragic event that shook the maritime community. The submarine, with a crew of 44 sailors, vanished while on a routine mission to the South Atlantic Ocean, leaving the world in suspense as an extensive search and rescue effort was launched. On November 15, 2017, the ARA San Juan reported an electrical malfunction and a battery fire, which were later determined to have been caused by a short circuit and the subsequent release of hydrogen gas. The submarine was then ordered to return to its base in Mar del Plata, but communication was lost shortly thereafter. But despite intensive search efforts involving multiple countries and sophisticated technology, the ARA San Juan remained elusive, with debris and oil slicks indicating a possible implosion or catastrophic event. Families of the crew members endured an agonizing wait for news, and the international maritime community rallied to offer assistance in the search. Tragically, though, the wreckage of the ARA San Juan was finally located a year later, in November 2018, at a depth of nearly 3,000 feet on the ocean floor. Number 3. The disappearance of the USS Scorpion in 1968. The USS Scorpion was a United States Navy Skipjack-class nuclear-powered submarine that met its end on May 22, 1968, under mysterious circumstances. Its disappearance and subsequent discovery have remained shrouded in intrigue, sparking various theories and speculation. During its final deployment, the Scorpion was on a mission in the Atlantic Ocean, returning from a patrol near the Mediterranean. The submarine was scheduled to arrive at its home port in Norfolk, Virginia, but it failed to make its expected radio check-in on May 27, 1968. Concerns then grew as communications attempts went unanswered, and the Navy launched an extensive search and rescue operation. On late October 1968, more than 5 months after its disappearance, the remains of the Scorpion were discovered approximately 400 miles southwest of the Azores at a depth of around 10,000 feet. The submarine had been crushed and shattered, indicating a catastrophic event. The exact cause of the disaster, however, remained elusive. Multiple theories emerged to explain the tragic fate of the USS Scorpion. Some suggested a malfunction in its torpedo tubes, while others speculated on a possible collision with a Soviet submarine or a naval mine. Another theory proposed a failure in the submarine's battery system, leading to a hydrogen explosion. The Navy conducted an extensive investigation into the disaster, which yielded no definitive conclusion. The final report indicated that an internal malfunction, possibly related to a torpedo or battery explosion, was the most likely cause. However, due to the lack of concrete evidence, the exact sequence of events leading to the demise of the 99 crew members of the Scorpion will never be known. Number 2, the USS Thresher disaster from 1963. The USS Thresher disaster occurred on April 10, 1963, when the United States Navy's nuclear-powered submarine USS Thresher sank during deep diving tests off the coast of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and sadly, the catastrophe claimed the lives of all 129 crew members on board. The USS Thresher was an advanced nuclear-powered submarine designed for anti-submarine warfare and intelligence gathering. During a routine deep diving test, the submarine encountered difficulties, and a series of technical failures culminated in the loss of propulsion, buoyancy, and ultimately the ability to surface. The sub exceeded its designed maximum depth and suffered a catastrophic implosion, resulting in its rapid descent to the ocean floor approximately 300 miles off the coast of Massachusetts. The tragedy prompted a profound investigation into the causes of the disaster. It was discovered that a braze joint in the saltwater piping system had failed, causing a leak that led to electrical failures and the shutdown of vital systems. The submarine's inability to blow its ballast tanks and surface under its own power ultimately sealed its fate. The investigation revealed flaws in both design and construction practices, as well as a lack of thorough testing and inspection procedures. And in response to the Thresher disaster, the U.S. Navy established the SubSafe program, which aimed to improve the safety and reliability of its submarines through rigorous design standards, enhanced quality control, and extensive testing procedures. The program implemented stringent requirements for materials, construction methods, and inspections, ensuring that submarines met the highest safety standards before entering service. And at number 1, the Kursk Tragedy from 2000. The Kursk submarine disaster unfolded on August 12, 2000, when the Russian Navy's nuclear-powered submarine K-141 Kursk suffered a series of explosions and sank in the Barents Sea. This catastrophic event not only led to the loss of all 118 crew members, but also exposed the challenges and limitations of Russia's post-Soviet naval infrastructure. The Kursk, an Oscar II-class submarine, was a symbol of Russia's naval prowess. During a routine naval exercise, a combination of factors, including a torpedo malfunction, unstable propellant, and improper handling, led to a violent explosion in the submarine's torpedo room. The initial explosion was followed by several secondary blasts, tearing through the Kursk and resulting in a severe breach of its hull. Despite international offers of assistance, the Russian government initially hesitated to accept foreign aid, causing a delay in rescue efforts. The lack of specialized equipment and trained personnel also hindered any timely rescue attempts. Meanwhile, the trapped crew members battled for survival in the dark, frigid depths of the Barents Sea. The subsequent days were marked by intense debates and diplomatic discussions, as well as mounting public outcry within Russia. But eventually, Russian divers managed to reach the sunken submarine. Sadly, though, it became tragically clear that all crew members had perished due to the severe damage and harsh conditions. The Kursk tragedy prompted a renewed focus on naval safety and reform within the Russian Navy. It highlighted the necessity of improved communication, coordination, and international cooperation during maritime emergencies. The incident also catalyzed changes in Russia's naval culture and its approach to transparency, as the government faced criticism for its handling of the disaster and its reluctance to accept help from other countries. Do you think the 118 crew members of the Kursk could have been saved if Russia had only accepted aid from other countries? Let us know what you think in the comments down below. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye for now.